Hi guys, I'm Nicole with Cuisine and welcome to my kitchen. It's a very small kitchen, but it does the trick for now. All right, so what we're going to be doing today is making some kale chips. I know you're saying, ooh, gross, but they're actually really good and you can put whatever seasoning you want on them. Sorry that this angle is not very flattering. I have my hair up today because when we cook in the kitchen, we don't want to leave our hair down because, well, that's a little gross. So we're not going to do that. We put our hair up and I'm going to show you how to make these wonderful chips. My son and I just love them, and I know summer's over and not so much worried about the beach body, but my son is a basketball player and he is getting ready to go back to school, so we're trying to get into shape for his next basketball season. So here we are to make some kale chips. All right, so these are the kale, what are going to be the kale chips that I've already started, and I have not rinsed them yet. I'm just taking them off the stems. So let me show you how to do that. Lots of times I'll buy them in a bag already washed and cut up just because it's easier. Let's face it, convenience has its perks. And as long as you're not using processed foods, then you're not doing any harm by using the already cut up stuff. But this time we bought a bunch of kale. So this is different. You have some options. I like to use my kitchen shears. Just make sure you're not using them any place else besides right here in the kitchen on food. Make sure to wash them thoroughly. So I have the kale, and you can do this one of two ways. You can either grab the leaves like this, get on this side of the stem, and you're just going to cut. I try to keep what I can in my hand. And then when you get to where the stem is really thin, see right there? You can use that part. That's not gonna be bad. Okay, so now I've got this all in my hand. I don't want this whole long strip. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take and cut pieces. About that big. And when you do them in that size, you get kale chips that are about that big. All right, so that's option one. Option two, which is much, much simpler, have our beautiful stalk of kale. All right, so I'm gonna take it, grab it right here, right under where the leaves start, and I'm gonna just give it a good pull. And that's going to get rid of all the thick part of the stalk. And what I'm going to be left with is the more tender part of the stalk at the top, and that's perfectly fine. Then we do exactly the same thing. Cut these bad boys into pieces. Now when you're doing this with the ones that you pull off, be careful because see how big that top piece is? So I'm probably going to want to cut it in half long ways and then cut it in my strips. That's really the only difference in the two. Then from there, you can give it a good rinse, and I'll be back with the next step. Okay, welcome back. So I have washed and dried my kale. So I just take and shake it out in the colander the best I can. But these curly leaves, see how curly those are? They just hold on to water no matter how much you shake. So what I took and did is put out a piece of paper towel and then dumped about half of my kale chips that I have prepared onto there, pat them dry, and then I'll do the other half and pat them dry. So this is what we have now. And as you see it's really piled up there. Because let me tell you, okay, I'm going to give you an inside secret right here. All the recipes that I saw said do a single layer. Well, that's all fine and dandy. It says do a single layer if you want really crispy chips. Well, I'm not doing anything but crispy kale chips because otherwise it's just steamed kale. That's the reason we take the water off, because you don't want steamed kale. You want crispy chips. So when you bite them, you get the satisfaction of that crunch you're looking for from a potato chip. So pat the water off, and then I pile these suckers up because the first time I made them, because I was so scared that I would have soggy chips, I did a nice single layer. Well, have you ever cooked kale or spinach or anything like that? Well, let me tell you, you might start out with this, but this is not what you're going to end up with. And so when you do a single layer, you're going to end up with about this much kale chips. And unless you want to do that multiple times to get the amount you actually want to consume, I'd suggest doing it this way. If you pile your cookie sheet like I did, and this is just a half sheet cookie sheet, you can use any size. I do have a silicone mat on there, which I sprayed lightly with olive oil. Then about halfway through, you're going to go through and you're going to kind of stir these with a spatula. And what that's going to do is mix the seasonings that you put, make sure everything's distributed evenly, and it's also going to allow you to now make a single layer, because this is the important part. That last half of the cooking, that's when all your water is going to cook out and leave you with beautiful crispy chips. But you don't have to have a single layer from the beginning, but you will do it, and I'll show you how here just shortly. So next step, I'm going to spray these with olive oil, and I'm sorry that I'm not showing you each step, but this setup is kind of weird for me and my cameraman is not here right now. So I'm going to bring it over here and try to do it for you. Hello! I feel like I'm so far away, but maybe you can zoom in. Okay, so I've just got my trusty olive oil spray. Now you can drizzle olive oil. The problem with drizzling olive oil is sometimes you get too heavily coated. When I first did these, I followed a recipe that said do them in a bag. Well, that's fine and dandy, but then we turned out with greasy chips, even though I really went light-handed on the oil. So this is the best way I've found. If you don't want to buy it in the can, sorry, you'll find this out about me. I'm a cheapskate, so I take money off whenever I can. So if you don't want to buy it in a can, because some people don't like that for health reasons or whatever your desired reason is, that's okay. There are spray bottles out there that will make an aerosol spray. You just pour regular olive oil into them. My aunt has one. So that's an option also for this. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to spray them lightly, and I'm just going to toss them with my hands while I do that to make sure they're all covered. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm just going to take, and I hope you can see this from here. Okay, do this, and I'm going to spray a little bit more. Okay, and then I just really want to kind of evidently throw kale on the floor. I'll get that later. Okay, and I feel like pretty good, so I'm just going to take and give it a light spray on top. You can try whatever seasoning you want. Today we're going to be using kosher salt. This is my go-to for these. Sorry, cauliflower in the oven. This is my go-to for these just because I love kosher salt. It's not as salty as table salt. I know, what do you want out of your salt? Saltiness. But no, this makes for a much more even flavor, and I just like the way it is. So it's also a much coarser grain, so I can see it a little better. So I'm just gonna, nothing started to come out yet if you're freaking out that I put that much salt on there. But you're just gonna do a light seasoning over the top. And remember, this doesn't have as much salt. This isn't coming out very fast. And then again, I'm just going to toss these lightly with my hands. More on the floor. I'm feeding the floor devils. All right. So now that these are all tossed, I'm going to pat them down, not tight. I'm just trying to fill all the empty spaces. Because you don't want to pack them in there. You want them to cook evenly. Okay. Yes, I did pick them up off the floor. Okay, so now that that's done, we're going to pop these in the oven. and I'll be back. Hey guys, okay, so I'm back. Right now I have done 10 minutes in a 300-degree oven with our kale chips. So I'm going to show you now what those look like. Okay, see how much they baked down? They're pretty much in an even layer now. So now I'm just going to take and use a spatula and kind of flip them over and renegotiate where they are so that they are in a single layer, and I'll be back. Okay, so this is the spatula I used. I use a big one just because it makes it easier. And then here are our kale chips, and they're all in a single layer now. Like I promised, I'm going to stick those back in the oven for about 10 more minutes. Hey y'all, I'm back once again. So what you didn't see is after I put them took them out of the oven after that first 10 minutes and stirred them, I did another 10 minutes, took them out and stirred them, 5 minutes, took them out and stirred them, and another 3. And just cook them to the degree that you want them cooked to. You want to make sure they're still not flaccid. They're not going to be super crispy at that point, just solely because after you pull them out of the oven, this is very, very important, don't touch them for 3 minutes. You can stir them, but then lay them back out flat and let them go for another 3 minutes just sitting out on your counter or whatever, wherever. So I'm going to show you real quick why I did so many at one time. Please don't mind the fact that I have my vent on because I am cooking a burger on my cast iron grill, and it does smoke when I do that. So see, that's what we're left with. They're beautifully crispy, and if you eat one, see, you can hear the crunch. So I hope this recipe works out. Drop any questions. Make sure to like, share, and have a wonderful day.